Hello and welcome to quarterLight, your car brochure channel, and in today's episode, the lovely Citroen CX. Hello and welcome back to quarterLight. Now if you're new to quarterLight, we're a car brochure channel here on YouTube, looking at car brochures from around the world for the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s and sometimes beyond that as well. So if you're interested in cars, car brochures, and of course looking back on cars gone by, then please do consider subscribing. It is all completely free. Now on Tuesdays, which this episode was first aired on, we've started doing something called Take Two Tuesdays, where we look at a brochure that we haven't looked for some time. Maybe we can improve how we did it. So that's what we're going to do today, although actually this is a vehicle that one of our members actually asked us to look at, and I was trying to think, do I have that brochure? I do have that brochure. We've not looked at it a long time, so let's have a look at it again. The beautiful Citroen CX. I never mind what anyone requests me to do at a Citroen, because I love Citroens, and the CX is going to be right up there with maybe my top favourite vehicles, maybe the top 5 or so favourite vehicles that I've never owned. So always happy to look at these. So that's the brochure for today, so let's throw it on the board. Here is today's brochure, quite a plain front cover actually. This one's from very early on actually, and I remember asked for one of the earlier CXs, and I do agree that they do look a bit cleaner and they do look nicer than the early ones. So this is probably from maybe 74, probably around about 75, this particular brochure. This looks like it's a UK brochure as well. Front cover showing the streamlining, because if you think about this, 74, 75, CX came out in 74. What a futuristic looking car, and think of some of the cars that are around in 74. Typical Citroen, really ahead of their time with a lot of things they used to do, and in some ways I often think of the Citroen CX as kind of like the last proper Citroen, really. I think they are absolutely amazing. When it did come to launch though in 1974, it actually came with some sort of teething troubles, and some of the very early models didn't come with power steering, and actually they proved very difficult to drive, because actually the CX carries 70% of the weight over those front wheels, so really they needed power steering to be any sort of enjoyable car to drive. The only other early Citroen CX brochure I have is this one. Now this one is from 1975, although this is actually one from France, so the text is in French and we can see that French number plate. It is showing a little bit of an award that it won then in 74, 75. Obviously all the text on this particular brochure is in French though, but I think we may just cast our eye over that one at the end. Although this UK brochure really is big enough on its own, to be honest with you. It's quite a big brochure, so this may turn out to be a longer episode. But anyway, let's turn the page and have a look inside. When we open this brochure up, we're greeted with just a blank page and then the front end of the Citroen CX with no text. Let's just zoom in a little bit better. An attractive looking car for sure. At this time we've got the chrome bumpers, and I do prefer them, and the white lights at the front, which certainly look ahead of their time. No Citroen badges on this one, unusually. Only one driver's door mirror, but you know, this is 1974, 1975, so nothing particularly unusual about this. You can also notice that the picture is a left-hand drive, so these are going to be like pictures taken probably from one of the French brochures as well. We've also got that great big wiper, just one wiper on these as well. Then we turn the page and we go from a page with no text to a page with all of the text. The introduction to the CX. Now a few people have said over the years, why don't you read all the brochure? Well, I always say there's too much to read. The brochure is going to be huge, but I am going to read all this, but don't worry too much for those who don't really like me reading the whole brochure, because this is the main amount of text in the brochure. When we turn over, we've got much nicer pictures and a small amounts of text on the pages. So let's go through this, as you know, people have been asking me this. So it tells us CX, like all Citroens, the new CX is more than just a new car. As sleek and beautiful as it is, this is more than just an outstanding new design. In many important ways, the new Citroen CX redefines the ideal car for now and the next decade. The CX brings together all the automotive qualities you will value most, with a particular emphasis on today's three motoring priorities: safety, comfort and economy. Overall safety. On the road, you'll be safer in the CX. Its design combines the latest safety technology with Citroen's own special contributions to safe motoring. Front-wheel drive and hydropneumatic suspension ensure good road holding, even on poor roads and difficult surfaces. Anti-dive geometry eliminates pitch when accelerating or braking hard. Front and rear height correctors maintain constant height regardless of load. The high pressure braking system has two circuits. The 4-disc brakes ventilated at the front are powerful and progressive. Passenger safety. Conceived as a first total safety car, the CX achieves new standards of protection for driver and passengers. The form of construction used for the CX is the result of intensive Citroen research, design studies and experiment. The passenger compartment itself is strong, rigid and built as an independent unit. The rest of the bodywork and structure is designed to absorb maximum impact energy by a series of controlled deformations. The transverse mounted engine improves weight distribution and also has an effective protective role. The interior furnishings too are designed with safety in mind. There are no hard projections on the fascia, handles and wiper winders are sunk out of harm's way in the richly padded door panels. Silent revolution. Citroens are synonymous with superb comfort, and the CX has the proven Citroen Hydropneumatic system. Instead of the traditional mechanical suspension, you ride on cushions of air. Quietness too is an important part of driving comfort. The CX reduces noise levels to a new low thanks to another Citroen engineering advance. Normally, the insulated materials in a car reduce the overall sound level, but does nothing to reduce the repercussions from engine vibration and road noise. The CX, unlike conventional cars, is built in two separate assemblies. First, the welded shell, which protects and isolates the passenger compartments. Second, the peripheral infrastructure, which carries all the mechanical running gear as well as the engine. The two assemblies are linked by rubber mountings. Engine and road noise therefore have to pass two barriers to reach the passenger compartment. Vibration and tyre noise are almost eliminated. The result, even at high speed, is a degree of silence never before achieved in a car of this class. CX, a sign of economy. On the continent, CX is a symbol used for the air drag coefficient of a vehicle or object. This is why CX was chosen to designate the new Citroen, because of its low profile and aerodynamic shape. The CX makes the most efficient use of energy with minimal wastage. At 70 miles per hour, the powerful CX engine is still turning at low revs, and low revs mean low fuel consumption. Another reason for CX's economy is its reliability. The engineering is robust and durable. The technology is proven. More than 2 million cars have been built with Citroen's hydropneumatic suspension. How many other cars can claim to be safe, spacious, comfortable and reliable, and to offer all this with such low running costs? The answer is none, which is why the Citroen CX is the new standard of excellence, which tomorrow's cars now have to match. So then we turn the page over, reminding this brochure is all about contrast. Again, we've gone from a page with all the text to a page of just the car, and I do actually like this double page spread. You do find these Citroen brochures from this period aren't really like a glossy page. It's quite a dull image in many ways. It's not the clearest image, so don't adjust your set. That's just how these brochures were. I guess it's a page quality that they used at the time, but you must admit the name CX suddenly makes sense when you look at this page. It just looks streamlined from here. Remember, again, this is a car that came out in '74. I sometimes have to remind myself of that. Some beautiful little touches as well. The beautiful shape of that rear bumper just looks lovely. We've got the little CX badge here, this extra little piece for aerodynamics, of course. The very simple steel wheel, but with that sort of chrome cap, it just looks right somehow, and the beautiful front bumper as well. And even the aerial looks like it's made for speed. It's a wonderful design. Let's turn the page. We turn the page again and we've got this lovely cutaway shot of a similarly coloured vehicle. So let's zoom in on the interior. Lovely side seats actually for this time period. You know it's going to be comfortable, don't you? It's just because it's a Citroen. But we've got sort of nice headrests and sort of extra little bit of cushionings on there, which is certainly approved. And then a better sort of look at the idea of those rear seats. They do look comfortable. This great big centre armrest on there as well. A few more different angles from this model, and then we've got a little tiny bit of text there. Let's start with the main image though. That front end is really beautiful, I think. I much prefer these early ones than what they turned into, but I still like the later ones as well. But I think these are a much more attractive design, although apparently these early ones are a little bit more troublesome than the later ones, as probably you can imagine. Now, I was saying earlier when we looked at the front page, of course, no sort of Citroen badge on, but it's up here, so very unusually placed Citroen badge on there, isn't it? Then we look at the windscreen. We're reminded this is just one windscreen wiper, although thinking about Hubnut and his wiper performance, at least there wouldn't be any sort of triangle of doom, of course, although I'm sure he would probably complain about some areas being unswept. But I always like the sort of one wiper idea, and presumably it saves a lot of money in production as well. And then a little bit of a look down the side and how it tapers away. From the rear, equally as attractive, I think, and look at that wonderful weird rear screen there with that sort of convex. Very interesting. No wiper, but I think it was designed to kind of keep that rear screen clear without the wiper. Just about make out the badging at the back there, so Citroen and the Citroen badge there, CX 2000, this one. Very attractive shaped rear lights. Text wise, it tells us style, enlightenment, refinement. The fine coachwork of the CX is discreetly enhanced with stainless steel, anodized aluminium and chrome trim. The laminated windscreen is exceptionally large. The rear window is of unique design. Side windows and rear quarterlights are curved. Total glass area is almost 32 square feet. So turning the page, we now get the interior, so we'll certainly cast our camera over these shots and then look at that little bit of text at the end. Certainly a better look at the seats this time, and typically Citroen, I just want to sit in them, they look so comfortable. And then a look at your driver's seat as well, looking equally as comfortable. I think we just, I'm going to say, can we just about make out these little levers between the seats would have been your self-leveling or your ability to go up or down on that suspension. Text wise, it tells us luxury, comfort, ample space for 5. In the front, 2 adjustable reclining seats with tapered backs. Their design meets 2 needs: a comfortable position, a correct body posture. In the rear, a supremely luxurious seat has room for 3 in comfort when the central armrest is folded. Turn the page, we get a really big image of the steering wheel and those very Citroen-esque controls and some more text. Let's just zoom in a bit further. So we get these very unusual speedos, kind of like your bathroom scale type design of old, where it's kind of like rotates on a drum. One will be the speed, I'm presuming the other will be a rev counter. But it looks wacky, it looks weird, but actually they make a lot of sense. You know, all the switch keys, instead of stalks, you know, they're just where your fingertips would be on the steering wheel on both sides. Citroen's idea, of course, was always that of keeping your steering wheel, your hands on the steering wheel as much as possible, and then just using these side controls. Sadly, this sort of wackiness was lost with later Citroens, rather sadly, but I think this is, to me, is what Citroens are all about, and these wonderful gauges. Overall, the dashboard looks very sort of neat and uncluttered though, doesn't it? I think it looks quite amazing, and I'm sure in 1974 when you jumped aboard one of these after you've been driving some of the British Leyland stuff, wow, it must have felt so weird. Very, very unusual indeed, but much approved actually, in my opinion. Now these things, I know Citroen's philosophy for a long time was with the indicators, they weren't self-cancelling, which sounds like that's a step backwards, but their idea was that should be a mental thing to be turning your indicators on and off, and they did that for a long time. Even with the earlier Citroen Visas, they had that as well, and then they went all conventional with normal stalks, rather sadly. And then over to one side there of the vent, and this very unusually positioned radio and what probably is a speaker. At the wheel of the CX, driving is safe, easy, relaxed, it tells us. Instruments on the dash are neatly grouped. The rotating drum speedometer shows braking distances and is permanently illuminated. Warning lights inform or alert. Hazard warning lamps, indicators, side lamps, brake fluid pressure, oil, engine oil temperature, water temperature, heated rear window, engine oil pressure, brake pad wear. The switches to the left and right of the steering wheel are so well positioned that you never lift your hands from the wheel. On the left, direction indicators, windshield washers, 2-speed windshield wipers, hazard warning lights. On the right, side lamp, headlamps, headlamp flasher and dip switch. And then we'll have a look at these little images on the next page, sort of like highlighted images. Look at the door card, and even the door card looks a little bit unusual and certainly very different. They're very imaginative, the Citroen designers, there's no doubt about that. Moving down, it gives you a look at the boot or trunk area with something in and without something in, and a reminder that no, it's not a hatchback, it has got a boot. And then in between the front seats, this sort of centre area, starting with that unusually positioned radio, moving down to the gear lever, various switch gear and a cigarette lighter, and then moving further back we have got sort of like the controls there for the Hydropneumatic suspension. A look at some of the unusual switch gear. It's like another look at sort of the door cards, and then the bottom there where the seat belt is attached. It tells us to drive a CX is a pleasure. It's a pleasure to operate the control switches with the tips of your fingers without taking your hands off the wheel. It's a pleasure to have within easy reach the gear lever, parking brake, heating controls, radio, cigar lighter and ashtray, all grouped on the centre console, all illuminated at night. Now these sorts of things don't really seem much with today's mind, and modern cars are very ergonomic. In the majority, I think all your switch gears close to hand, but certainly when you look back, certainly in the 60s, the switch gear, we don't think about ergonomic design, we're just throwing it wherever it would actually fit. So certainly a big leap forward in that regard. To ride in a CX is a pleasure for the passengers. All the luggage is stored away in the low-level carpeted boot, and everything is so practical. Door pockets in the front, ashtrays in the rear doors, the glove box which lights up when you open it. In a car, details matter. The CX is strong on details. Turn the page and the brochure starts looking at the mechanicals, the engine compartment, and the unusual place that actually not just Citroen, a lot of the French car makers like to store their wheel in the engine compartments. Few benefits from doing that, of course. More room in your boot or trunk. You can get to it without unloading all the luggage from your boot. Better than storing it under the car, which seems to be like the modern way of doing it, because when you actually need to use it, it's either rusted and you can't bring the thing down, or it's absolutely filthy. So in actual fact, it's not a bad place to actually put that spare wheel. We get a look at the wiping performance there and the sweep from that one windscreen wiper. A look at our brand new disc brakes. And a look at the door catch, the door pockets, and in fact the door card in general. The CX engine combines smoothness with power and performance with durability. Their 4 cylinders are always ready to prove their abilities at the touch of your foot on the throttle. The cooling circuit is pressurized and made even more effective by the addition of an electric fan. The transverse engine makes possible more space inside the car, improves weight distribution, offers extra collision protection. The 2-speed single-arm windscreen wiper sweeps a larger area than normal and leaves a clearer visual field. Because of its central position and the curved shape of the screen, the wiper always operates parallel to the flow of air over the screen. It retains efficiency under all conditions and at all speeds. 16 rubber mountings link the welded body shell and the peripheral infrastructure. The passenger compartment is thus virtually isolated from sources of noise and vibration. The front brakes are fitted with ventilated discs. Turn the page and we then get a blue example here. It's kind of the higher spec model, the CX 2200. We'll start with the text this time and then we'll move over to this lovely image. It tells us here CX 2200 extra power, extra luxury. The 2175cc engine develops 112 bhp at 5500 rpm and reacts with extra power and speed to every demand made upon the driver. The CX 2200 has all the advanced features of the CX 2000. Its specifications include, in addition, electric window winders in the front doors, pneumatic oil level indicator below the dashboard, air horns, and other features shown over leaf. Beautiful lines, luxurious interior and zestful power make the CX 2200 a car of irresistible appeal. So this rather beautiful example in blue. Again, I think it really suits this colour. I think I actually prefer this one. We notice though the Citroen badge has now been located where you would really expect it to be. A little bit unusual that it wasn't there on all of them really, but there it is, where it belongs in my opinion. You can't really see too much differences from the outside. I mean, it's still just got one sort of mirror on the driver's door side. We do have fancier sort of wheels, which we'll have a look at in a moment though. We get some more interesting images there on the inside. So looking at this particular interior, it's pretty much exactly the same, although we do get this, which looks very unusual. Let's see if we can zoom in and get a better look at that. This apparently, looking at the notes there, is a mechanical pneumatic engine oil level gauge of some description. So that's unusual. It shows another picture in a moment, but moving on. A look at some of the gauges. We get a map pocket on the door, on the seat I should say. And these sorts of special wheels on this model, which I don't think I've ever seen before. The text tells us on both the CX2000 and CX2200 the instrument panel are identical and include a warning lamp cluster in case of major incidents. Additional features of the 2200 include the following: the pneumatic engine oil level indicator below, which is what we looked at, but there is another picture below which we can see again, which enables the driver to check the oil level before starting the engine. On the console, switches for the electric window winders, large pockets for newspapers etc. in the backs of the front seats, and externally the personality of the model is underlined by special wheel trims. Oh, the wheel trims, so not even alloys, they're just a trim. The exhaust tailpipe trimmed in stainless steel and a special finish under the bumpers. And then, like it promises, for whatever reason it's giving us a newer picture of that sort of indicator. We then get a sort of x-ray shot which we'll zoom in on. First image though is showing how it's built, which is certainly an interesting one. And then we get the engine compartment and showing even the battery there, the little pedals. Moving back to the interior. Lovely drawing, isn't it? And then going right down to the back there. The text to the edge starts talking about the hydropneumatic suspension. Each wheel is fitted with a shock absorbing sphere which combines the interaction of mineral oil and a constant mass of gas, from which comes an extraordinary flexibility and, at the same time, perfect shock absorption. Body shell completely welded, ensuring the rigidity of the car. Peripheral infrastructure. This carries the engine and the running gear, shell and infrastructure are linked by 16 rubber mountings. The result is exceptional stability and silence. Anti-dive geometry. On the front axle, this prevents nose lift and dipping in the case of hard acceleration and braking. Front and rear height correctors. These maintain the vehicle at a constant height regardless of load. A lever allows the driver to vary the ground clearance. A brake valve limits the rear braking effect in relation to the weight on the axle. And then the high pressure cooling system comprises a radiator and an expansion tank and electric fan. And then at the end of the brochure here it's showing the dimensions and the technical data. I'll quickly cast my camera over here because I just like the look of the CX even in this form, and then we'll look at this technical data. So we've got sort of like the dimensions written out from the side, looking down from above, the front and of course the rear. Even these little drawings, I don't know, they look really attractive. Anyway, let's move to the technical data. So I'm not going to read all this technical data word for word, but I'll certainly cast my camera over all of it in case you wanted to actually pause the screen to have a look at anything in particular. Starts by talking about sort of the towing weights, the lengths, the heights, the ground clearance, roof rack weight, boot volume, and it starts talking about the engine. So engine, 4-cylinder inline, water-cooled, transverse mounted, inclined 30 degrees forward, side camshaft light alloy cylinder head, dual manifold exhaust, cooling circuit, electrical system, clutch and transmission. Transmission is a front wheel drive gearbox with 4 synchromesh forward speeds, gear controlled by floor mounted lever. Discs, Disc brakes, ventilated type at the front, dual circuit front and rear, hydraulic high pressure main control, emergency brake acting on front discs with calipers separate from main brake units. And then we've got a couple of the tyres there. They're going for Michelin, which Citroen used to go for. Moves on to the steering, which is rack and pinion, safety column with flexible coupling and shaft with universal joint. Chassis, sheet steel, peripheral infrastructure comprising front assembly, rear assembly, connected by two side members and supporting the wheel arm bearers, suspension stops and the engine gearbox unit, secured to the underside of the body shell by flexible mountings. Suspension, of course, is that wonderful Citroen Hydropneumatic. 4 independent wheels, height correctors front and rear, maintaining a constant ground clearance whatever the load in the vehicle. Ground clearance is controlled by using a lever in the centre console between the front seats. This variation is used to make wheel changing easier. And of course there was always that Citroen thing, isn't it? You could actually pull a wheel off and it'd still drive on 3 wheels. Then talks about the capacities and the features. So we get a speedometer with indication of stopping distances, central safety warning lamp, tachometer, a hazard warning lamp, cigar lighter, day-night driving mirror, electric screen wash, 2-speed screen wiper, brake pad wear warning lamp, glove box, lid lock, rear door locking, child safety, defrosting rear window, quartz iodine headlamps, driver's seat height adjustment, reel type belts, and then the higher spec 2200 adds electric window winders at front, pneumatic oil level indicator on dashboard, metallic paint, power steering with power centering and 2 headrests on the CX 2200. So sounds like this must be one of the early 74 brochures, with the base model not having the power steering and making them very difficult to drive. Some more technical data there. So looking at the engines, so the 2000 was a 1985cc, the 2200 was a 2175cc engine. The lower model was 100 bhp, the 2200 was 112 bhp. It also gives us the performance, so the 2 litre does 108 miles per hour, the 2200 does 111 miles per hour. Fuel consumption 27.77 for the smaller one, 27.77 for the bigger one. Not sure what that's exactly based on. And then we got some road speeds in miles per hour for the different gears. You also get some small print at the end here, and a reminder that this is Citroen Cars Limited and the UK address. So that then takes us to the end of this UK brochure, but I did promise we'd have a quick flick through this French one, but it is just going to be a quick flick through. Certainly time is moving on. So first page, like the UK one, shows the lower model, the 2000. And certainly looks like if you get the red example, you get some red door cards, which is nice. And the higher spec 2200, notice we've got the more what we would expect to see, a sort of steel wheels with these centre chrome caps, which I prefer, but did have that option for those full wheel trims, unusually. Moody image sort of demonstrating the gauges, but this French brochure does kind of like show you probably the car that you really wanted, the Palace, the luxury version, so we'll have to have a look at that. Look at those wacky wheel trims on that. Again, I don't think I've ever seen one with these wheel trims on there. They look very interesting, don't they? And then, sorry for moving the camera around, but we can see how it's badged on the side here, if I can manage to tune that camera in. Unfortunately, it won't tune in any more than that. I think it's just a bit of a blurry, not quite clear shot, but it would say the CX Palace on that little bit of a trim piece. But overall, the sort of luxury end of the market is this one. The Palace interior looks like we're getting leather on that one. A look from above at some of the controls there and levers. It also gives us a rather nice look at this sort of instrument cluster, tells us what they all are. That is your rev counter there. Final quick note, this is also telling us we can have this as a diesel as well in this French brochure. So there we go, the wonderful Citroen CX in those two brochures there. This episode's getting very long now. I think it's possibly the longest episode by this stage of a quarterLight brochure review. So thank you so much for those who've stuck at it and got to this point. It's very much appreciated. Please don't forget to leave a like. We'll end as we always do by saying thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you've not done already. It is all completely free. You can also become a member if you really want to. Have a look on the quarterLight page for that. But thank you so much for watching this video to this point. It's very much appreciated. I'll add a couple of boxes here for other episodes that we've done in the past. But please do take care. We'll see you very soon, and goodbye.